The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
With COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations trending the wrong way, tonight we'll get an update on what to watch for in the next few months. Then Steve Paikin talks to actor and playwright Ian Shaw about his satirical play, The Shark is Broken, and its behind-the-scenes look at his father's role in the blockbuster movie Jaws. Also, Jeyan Jeganathan visits Enniskillen, Ontario, to find out why a growing number of municipal elections go uncontested. And ahead of Monday's election, we've got highlights from the Toronto Region Board of Trade Mayor's debate hosted by Steve earlier this week. It's Friday, October 21st, and that's all ahead on the agenda. With the arrival of the cooler weather, already there's snow in some parts of the province, we'll all be spending more time indoors just as COVID-19 numbers take up again. With us for an update and what to expect as winter approaches, from the nation's capital, Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist and associate professor at the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Health Sciences. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I always look forward to our conversations. It's been too long. But right now, when you read the news, it just seems as if a lot of things are happening at the same time. According to the CBC, even with just 3 days, 3 days missing from the data, it's been reported that Ontario has 109 new COVID-19 deaths over the past 7 days, the single highest death count since early May. How concerned should Ontarians be right now as we move into the winter months?
We should always be concerned. How much concern? Well, that depends on how much faith you have in the variety of mitigation tools we have outlaid and whether or not people will be uptaking those mitigation tools. Here's the thing. Vaccination works really well to prevent the worst outcomes, hospitalization and death, but not perfectly. And the more people who become infected, the more people vaccinations are going to fail for. So that's why these death rates are climbing. More people are becoming infected and reinfected.
And we're also hearing that we have new variants. Can you tell us about the new variants and how concerned we should be about them?
There's a soup of new variants, and some of them are more worrying than others. The ones making the news more commonly are BQ1 and BQ1.1, its descendant, and these are descendants of BA5. The thing that makes them scary is there are multiple mutations on the spike protein, which makes them more transmissible, and most concerning, they seem to evade the immunity offered by both the original vaccination and by our best antibody treatments. So there is a selection of people in society who rely upon these antibody treatments in lieu of vaccination, and as well people who rely upon these antibody treatments to treat them when they become sick so that they don't die. And if these antibody treatments are now not going to be effective, well, that's terrifying for a certain number of people in the province. For the rest of us, the vaccine immune escape potential is worrying. It means that we're more likely to become infected. It's not yet known if it causes more serious disease. There's some fringe concern that it may affect the lungs more, which is always a little scary. But the solution here is for everyone to get their bivalent vaccine if they're eligible, because that one probably has a bit more efficacy against these new subvariants, and also to look into the other mitigation tools that we know work: mask wearing, ventilation, staying away from sick people, etc.
Well, you mentioned how in your first answer about how the faith that you have in the mitigation tools that we have right now. You also mentioned the vaccines. We know that many people have 2, 3, even 4 shots against COVID. But as we're learning, those vaccines, the efficacy, I guess, wanes over time. You mentioned the bivalent vaccine. Can you tell us what that is and why it's important for people to get that vaccine?
Sure. First, the efficacy against the worst outcomes, hospitalization and death, wanes much more slowly. It's mostly the efficacy against preventing infection and symptomatic disease that seems to go by pretty fast. So that's why the boosters are important, and that helps stop or slow transmission in the population. The bivalent vaccines are special because they include not just the original vaccine, which was tailor-made for the original Wuhan strain of the virus, but also it contains elements of Omicron. In particular, the BA1 subvariant for the Moderna vaccine and the BA.5 for the Pfizer vaccine. That means that it's probably more closely tailored to what's circulating now and probably offers better neutralizing immunity, meaning that it prevents infection as well as serious disease, at least for a little while.
Well, we're learning that the amount of people who have gotten the bivalent vaccine is not as high as it should be or could be. And as we talk about the mitigation measures that were taken before to help curb COVID-19, a lot of those are gone. So how do you communicate to people who are, we go out, it feels as if it's 2019, but it's not 2019. So how do you communicate that message, the importance of people getting these vaccines and that COVID is not done?
It's really hard because they look around and they don't see the suffering. If you step into an emergency room in a hospital, you'll see the crowdedness. And that's really what this comes down to, is expressing to people the close to collapse that our healthcare system is in for a number of reasons, including COVID. COVID is the trigger that caused all of this. We have the staffing crisis, we have the overcrowded crisis. But the fact that we have more people in hospitals is because more people are getting sick. I don't know how to express this to people except to show them the numbers and to take TV cameras into the hospitals to convince them that this is really happening. We all know people who are getting sick. Part of the problem is a lot of people are getting sick and they're fine because vaccination works. They recover within a few days and they don't go to the hospital. We have to remember, we all know people as well who have loved ones who have died. Right. So reminding the world of the mortal toll that this disease has taken and the potential long-term disability toll that it still might take in the form of long COVID, that's what's important.
I saw someone tweet, I'm not sure if it was an article, maybe, I think it's something that Andre Picard might have written to avoid long COVID, avoid it in the short term. And that's it feels kind of next to impossible to do that right now. We're learning more and more about long COVID and the repercussions that it has, not only to our own bodies, but also to the system, to the public health. What do we know about long COVID now that we didn't know, say, maybe a year ago?
We know that it seems to be related to the severity of your disease. So the more symptoms you show, the more you suffered when you're infected, the more likely you're going to have long COVID. It seems that the more infections you get, the more likely you're going to get long COVID because each one is a roll of the dice. Defining long COVID is hard. So it could be symptoms lasting several weeks past the point of recovery, depending what recovery is. And oftentimes these studies are based upon self-report. So there's some data bias there. However, it seems like maybe up to 20% of people who become infected report symptoms lasting more than a few weeks past when they should have recovered. And that's by definition long COVID. What's causing it? It's unclear. That's a clinical question I'm not really qualified to answer. It's something that concerns me, though. Epidemiologically, I look at the impacts on the population. And even if a tiny percentage of people become stricken with long COVID, so many people are becoming infected that we might be looking down the barrel of a long-term disability crisis in the world in the next few years. So until we develop treatments for this, we might be in some serious trouble.
You mentioned this could be a worldwide disability crisis. I think a lot of us haven't had access to PCR tests. So some of us might test negative on the rats, and then we end up kind of going out into the community. How concerned are you about that, that so much we're not reporting the numbers as we once did? We don't really have a sense of how much COVID is within our communities.
Yeah, we're flying blind, so that affects our ability to determine exactly where we are in the trajectory of the pandemic. It affects our ability to ascertain community risk. But at the same time, it doesn't change what we have to do as individuals. We should try to prevent ourselves from becoming infected. Live your lives, absolutely, but take the steps to prevent yourself from becoming infected. If you've already been infected or you suspect you've been infected, just try not to get infected again. Again, for most people, you roll the dice and you'll be fine, but it's the repeated rolling of the dice that's the problem. So it's these reinfections that has a lot of people worried. Like, this is dividing the scientific community somewhat. Some people feel that it's fine. Other people feel that this is actually not that great to be reinfected all the time. So I err on the side of precaution. In the presence of uncertainty, I will err on the side of keeping myself and my family as safe as I can. So I try to avoid infection if I can, while at the same time living my life.
You mentioned, I don't want to go too much into the weeds, but you said that it's dividing the scientific community. A lot of us don't really know, we are not experts in this, and we're just kind of trying to do the best that we can. And then you read headlines like in the Global Mail on Wednesday, Public Health Agency preparing for worst case scenario, variants as fall resurgence looms. And I'm guessing we might be going into another wave. What do you think the next wave might look like?
I think we're definitely going into another wave, and it's probably peak sometime in December or January, driven by these subvariants, by BQ1, BQ1.1, hopefully not by XBB, which is another variant we haven't talked about that's in Asia right now. And it'll look very, very high number of cases. The cases have been somewhat disconnected from the death rates because of the awesome power of vaccination, but not completely disconnected. So again, the more people who get infected, that death rate is going to ratchet up. But that shouldn't be what we focus on. We should focus primarily on the hospitalization rate. The thing about these new variants, too, is that they seem to increase the risk of reinfection. That is why I think this will be a relatively high wave when it comes to actual infections. But if people take steps, wear their masks, make important choices in their lives, and select that bivalent vaccine, then it might not happen. Right? So we have it in our power to really reduce the impact of this wave.
How do you communicate that message? Because honestly, like I don't want to put you on the spot or anything. If there's a division within the scientific community and we're just regular folk are just trying to figure out, like, how do you communicate the importance of doing that right now?
Yeah, it's really hard, right? Part of it is stepping away from the narrative of individual risk. We're focused on what does this mean for me? What are my chances of getting sick, my chances of dying? Forget about that. Think about your community, your society. If the healthcare system fails, we're all doomed. So it's important that we all take small steps in our life, even though our individual risk might be perceived to be low, to protect the system and the whole. We have failed in talking about our responsibilities to community. We have to really reinvest in that kind of narrative.
You have a child, I have small kids. I haven't been able to get any Advil or Tylenol. Ordered it from Amazon, just got an email. It's not going to come until December. We're seeing what's happening to children's hospitals. There is a strain. Sick children are being transferred from hospitals in their communities to hospitals out of region. Parents are told to bring blankets and toys to emergency rooms because of long visits. Can you help us understand what's happening with children's hospitals?
Yeah, I don't fully understand it myself. Keep in mind that we haven't even seen the flu season yet. Flu season's still coming. So get your flu vaccine too. Help reduce the burden on the healthcare system. Kids are experiencing a lot of issues right now, among them RSV, which is a respiratory disease that we don't talk enough about. That seems to be running wild right now. That's not COVID, but it looks like it. The common cold is pretty prevalent too, and COVID's there as well. But in addition, we have understaffing issues across the board in our hospital system. We have nurses who are burnt out and who can't support their workloads anymore, who are leaving en masse, taking early retirement, et cetera, and who are abused all the time as well. So our hospital system really functions on the backs of nurses and these non-doctor medical professionals. So we really need to invest in supporting them more, encouraging them to stay, encouraging more of them to come into our system. We also need to be triaging better to keep non-serious cases out of the hospital. This is concerning. If we cannot serve our most vulnerable, by which I mean our children, what kind of society are we?
We only have a few minutes left, but I want to sneak in two questions. We don't really hear the term herd immunity as much anymore. Why is that?
Well, for one thing, it was out the window as a goal once Omicron came in. Omicron is so contagious that, and the vaccine's efficacy not that high, that the math suggests that you need more than 100% of the population to be immune to achieve herd immunity. Also, this disease ping-pongs between humans and non-human animals. That means so long as a non-human reservoir exists, you can usually become reinfected. This is common in other diseases as well. So it's unlikely COVID will be eradicated. So herd immunity probably won't be with us unless a new vaccine is developed that has extraordinary transmission reducing capability. And that's always in the cards.
We've heard from Kieran Moore, the chief medical officer of this province, say that if need be, masking might be reintroduced again as we move into the colder weather. If you could implement only one COVID policy, which one would you say gives everyone the best, I guess, money for their health?
With no political or public pushback, masking, I think. High quality N95 masks subsidized by the government for everybody. They're comfortable, it's not imposition, they're safe, anyone can use them, and they work against all variants. The political pushback against that would be extraordinary, though. And so I think the other option is ventilation improvements in all public spaces, improve the airflow and put better filters in place, and CO2 monitors. That can help enormously as well. And there's less political pushback against that.
Raywat, thank you so much we covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. We always appreciate your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If you grew up in the 1970s, you cannot help but remember what a splash the movie Jaws made. It was the first ever summer blockbuster that had people both lining up around the block to see it and petrified of sharks after they emerged from a screening. Ever wonder what happened behind the scenes in the making of that film? Well, we no longer have to wonder. The Shark is Broken is a new play at the Royal Alexandra Theatre in Toronto, and it tells much of that story from the point of view of actor Robert Shaw, who played the crazy shark-hunting Quint. Ian Shaw plays his father and co-wrote the play as well, and he joins us now here in studio. It's a great pleasure to meet you.
Great to meet you, Steve.
I want to start with a picture. Mr. Director, can we see this picture, please? That's you and your dad. How old are you here?
Well, I'm probably about 6, 7.
And you are one of how many siblings?
There's 10 of us.
So
Yeah.
how much of this guy did you see when you were growing up?
Well, quite a lot, because we traipsed around with him. So, I remember spending time with him, on Jaws and on lots of other films, Force 10 from Navarone. We were in Spain with him. Yeah.
Most people who have parents don't really appreciate what their parents do for a living and don't really care. Did you appreciate what your father did for a living and care?
Probably not.
Yeah.
No, I took it for granted. I felt, when you're a kid, you just assume that this is absolutely normal. So, yes, I think I probably took it for granted.
You didn't know that he was a huge movie star?
I don't think I knew what that meant. Yeah.
Okay. What prompted you to want to do something artistically creative with the whole Jaws story and the behind the scenes of it?
Well, that's a long story. I think the moment, the beginning bit was looking in the mirror when I had a moustache for a part, and I thought that I looked very like Quint. And then that kind of triggered other thoughts that I had had. I'd always loved Jaws. And
you would not have been old enough to see it when it first came out.
well, I saw it too young.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I saw it before my dad died.
Okay.
Because I remember having a nightmare, with the sharks going around the bed and calling out for him to save me. Yeah, in terms of the inception of the piece, Carl Gottlieb's book, The Jaws Log, was a fascinating read, just generally about filmmaking, I think. Then I met Richard in the 90s, Dreyfuss. He was auditioning for Hamlet, directing that in Birmingham in England, and I introduced myself. And
Did anything click?
Well, I was expecting him to give me a hug or something like that.
What'd you get?
It looked like I punched him in the stomach. Yeah.
So, did you infer from that there maybe was some friction behind the scenes with your dad that made him unlovable to you?
I walked out of that audition and I thought, I need to find out more about this, and so read Carl Gottlieb's book. And that revealed an extraordinary relationship between the two of them.
I'm going to go off the path for a second here.
That's great.
Whenever I go to a show, I try to read nothing about it ahead of time. I try to know as little about it as possible, so the whole thing unfolds on me like a big surprise and it's a great revelation. So when I went to this show, I did not know that you were playing your dad. I just thought you were playing Quint. It did not occur to me. And then you walk out on stage and, oh my God, you are the spit and image of the guy, right?
Yes.
Is this how you normally look? Or?
Oh, no, I mean...
This is all for the part.
It is all for the part. I think in my local village in England, they think I'm nuts because some of them have no idea that I'm doing this. And they just see this guy with a moustache and
I mean, we see it here, but
sideburns.
yeah, can we put this shot up? I mean, that's you in the play, and it's freaky how much you look like your dad.
Yes, I mean, that was one of the factors, I think.
That made you want to do it.
Yes, well, again, with all of these things, like I'm saying, meeting Richard, reading the Jaws log, looking like my dad, finding, you know, I mean, I loved Jaws and thought there was a story to it. All of these various, you know, ingredients were coming together. But when it came to it, you know, it was me with a pint with a friend saying, I've got this mad idea, almost hoping that they would shoot it down because I was so nervous of the complexity of the tone of what we might try and achieve.
Well, let's get into that, shall we? How old was your dad when he made the movie?
He was 47.
How old are you now?
I'm 52.
So pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I don't know how to ask this other than just to come right out and ask it. How odd is it to play your father?
Well, good question. Less odd now I've done it. But in approaching it, pretty terrifying and weird and that, you know, it's not so much the playing of him. I guess it was the writing of him. You know, I loved him. I didn't want to, you know, embarrass him unnecessarily. I didn't want to shame my family, you know, but we were going to paint him, warts and all.
And you do.
Yeah. So that was, you know, that's why I was very reluctant. And, you know, as an actor, generally, you try to avoid association with you know, a parent actor who is a huge star. So, you know, there were all sorts of warnings, and I felt quite sick, you know, at the prospect at the beginning.
Have you heard from siblings, for example, who've seen the play and say, I really don't like the way you portrayed Dad there?
They haven't said that. I mean, my family's extraordinary, I have to say, and I'm very grateful to, you know, my brothers and sisters and my stepmother for their enormous support. They're incredible. It's a sort of universal, you know, seal of approval on this particular thing, and it wouldn't have been possible without that.
Another bit of a tacky question here, but do you wish your dad were still alive to see you do this?
I wish he was still alive, but it wouldn't. It's one of those sort of quantum physics things. It couldn't possibly exist if he was alive, because it's, to some extent, even though he is presented, you know, imperfectly, there's a lot of love in there and a lot of feeling of loss, you know.
Let's take our next picture here, if we can, Sheldon. This is the picture of Bruce. Bruce is the name they gave to the shark. As the title of the play suggests, was the shark always broken when they made this movie, and therefore lots of time to sit around and make mischief?
It was very, you know, it had, they tested it in fresh water. So then when it came to putting it in salt water, you know, the whole thing had to be reconfigured. You know, and they had other technical issues. At one point, it plunged to the bottom and got a big dent in its chin. They had 3 of them, actually. So they had a one that you could see whole, and then they had 2 sides, as it were, running on these complex rails. It's almost like a sort of Victorian, you know, sea pier. Yeah, so I mean, Spielberg was so audacious to attempt to film on the sea. It hadn't been done before, to my knowledge.
Yeah, he wasn't using some fake back lot. This was the real thing.
And you can see it in the film. Yeah. I think that the authenticity of it.
Your dad, at least the way you have portrayed it, seemed very unhappy much of the time he made this movie, right? Fighting with Richard Dreyfuss and just not battling some demons as well at the same time.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
I think it is fair to say. I mean, what's very interesting about him as a person is that he's quite mercurial in that he would be unhappy, and, you know, I don't think he didn't think much of the script initially. I think he came round afterwards, but, you know, and he was obviously, you know, bored and drinking too much and whatnot. But he did have a great sense of humour, and he would still laugh at the situation, I think.
Do you think he ever came around to appreciate how much of a megastar this movie made him in ways that none of the other work he did, which was in some ways equal in terms of his acting chops, ever did? I
think he was shocked at the reaction. I mean, you know, I think they all were. You know, they went to the cinema to I mean, I think the producers felt that Zanuck and Brown felt that The Shark might be laughed at. So I think everyone was a little bit taken aback about how successful it was. And, you know, then Robert was invited to the Oscars, you know, and was presenting there, and then he was able to command much higher fees. He did say at one point that he realized that Spielberg was special as it went on.
Because he was a kid when he made this.
He was. I think he was 25.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, 25, 26. And, yeah, but I think Robert did, you know, he at one point they ran out of money and he deferred his wages because he wanted Spielberg to finish the film.
Nice.
So he did come around, I think.
Now, your first interaction, as you've told us, with Richard Dreyfuss was not great. Do you know whether or not he's seen this?
I don't know that.
So you don't know what he thinks about the way he's being portrayed in this?
No.
You haven't heard from others?
No. I mean, I think he might be aware of it, but I don't know that. And I would love to meet him again and to talk to him. And yeah, I hope he does come. You know, because we're hoping to, you know, that it has a future life after this. So I'd be honoured to meet him. You know, I love him as an actor.
Well, he's great. Been great in many things. And Roy Scheider, alas, is gone, so he doesn't know anything about this. So he's the guy.
Yes,
he's the guy. I want to show another picture of your dad, if we can here, Sheldon, if you would. Your dad was a villain in the James Bond movie From Russia with Love, and he wasn't playing a crazy shark hunter in this one, or a limp gangster as he did in The Sting. He plays a young, evil stud. He was quite a stud. When you see him like that, looking so young and powerful, what comes to mind?
Well, the fight with him and Sean
was amazing.
Yeah.
That was a scene.
They really went for it. You know, they ended up, it wasn't like with Richard, they ended up as great friends. I think Robert introduced Sean to golf. So, yes, a different dynamic between those two. I mean, I think with Robert and Richard, I think, you know, Richard says that there was a lot of affection privately between them. And I think Robert was sort of trying to school Richard, perhaps slightly in a clumsy way, because he wanted Richard to be, you know, more focused on the work rather than on fame.
Well, if you judge it by the finished product, you can't help but love what the two of them did together, because the finished product is fantastic.
The chemistry is amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
As is your play. The Shark is Broken, and it's at the Royal Alex until the 6th of November, and we're really grateful that it has enabled you, Ian Shaw, to come here and talk to us about your play and your dad. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Municipal election day is Monday, but in some places, those races were over before they began. Jeyan Jeganathan went to Enniskillen, Ontario to find out why incumbents aren't facing as much competition as they once did. Have a look.
This is some of the finest plowlands in southwestern Ontario. Soybeans, winter wheat, and corn for kilometers on end. It's also the birthplace of the oil industry in North America. More than 160 years ago, the first commercial oil well was discovered here. The township of Enniskillen is home to farmers who have tended these fields for generations. Off the 402 in southern Ontario, this rural community is home to just over 3,000 people, including Kevin Marriott.
We just finished harvesting about 800 acres of soybeans that are all exported to Japan, and then we planted wheat behind that. All the beans that we harvested are in the storage in these bins out behind, and we still have a little bit of wheat to plant, but we have a couple weeks before that has to be completely planted.
Early mornings and long days on the farm are the norm for Marriott. He's been doing this for decades. But for the past 28 years, he's also spent a lot of his time here.
I first got elected to Enniskillen Township Council in 1994 and have been mayor since 2012.
To add to his resume, he's also the warden of Lambton County. Enniskillen's longest-serving councillor, and this past summer became the township's longest-serving mayor.
In 1994, I was encouraged by a current councillor that I should consider running. So I ran thinking I would like put into 1 or 2 terms, but for some reason I'm still here. First term, elected as a councillor. I believe for 4 positions there was 8 people running. It's very different from today.
This year, over 400 municipalities will be going to the polls to vote for their local politician. In neighboring towns around here and in larger urban centers, competition for these seats is stiff, but not in Enniskillen. Mayor Marriott has gone unchallenged since 2014, but this year, he and his entire council have all been acclaimed. Acclamations are a growing trend in Ontario. In 2018, 477 municipal candidates across Ontario were acclaimed. In 2022, 71 more candidates were acclaimed for a total of 548. What's more surprising is the number of entire councils going acclaimed, particularly in smaller rural and northern communities. Since 2014, the numbers have climbed from 19 to 32.
I did have quite a few phone calls before the period was announced of people that were thinking of running. The final deadline came and nobody did. I was surprised at that.
There have always been acclamations in municipal elections, and according to political science professor Joe Lyons, the nature of local politics have a few things going against them when compared to other levels of government.
Low pay, low recognition. There's not a lot of opportunity to pursue big, ambitious projects. If we think about municipal operating budgets, for example, significant majority of those budgets every year will be basically predetermined. So for small municipalities, police and fire are going to eat up a significant chunk of their budgets.
Marriott equates the salary he makes as mayor to a well-paid volunteer position, but says the satisfaction comes from seeing the improvements to his community, even if it comes with increasing online criticism.
It is getting harder to get people interested in stepping up like I did in 1994. I blame part of that on social media. I watch that a little bit and see the heavy criticism that some mayors and councillors go through. It was quite an honor to be considered. Nobody wanted to run against me.
70% of the acclaimed candidates in this election were incumbents, and that means a lot more in smaller communities.
The stakes are a little higher running for local office in smaller places than in larger places, just because of those personal relationships. People will likely know the incumbent. Often people make the step, for example, from councillor to mayor. So if someone's on council and they generally like the mayor, they're probably less likely to run against them.
According to Lyons, the increase in acclamations is also a symptom of these elections having very little information about the candidates.
municipal elections are nonpartisan. If we're voting for candidates federally and provincially, even if we don't know much about them, we generally know the ideological orientations of the main political parties. It's much harder to find out that information about local candidates, especially in races where a lot of people are running.
While Marriott won't be on the campaign trail this year, he says competition helps politicians like himself understand the issues at hand.
Well, it forced you to talk to as many people as possible to get feedback, what they wanted to see for the future of Enniskillen.
The way democracy is supposed to work, there's supposed to be a competition, there's supposed to be an exchange of ideas. If they don't have the opportunity to do that, right, then that limits the kind of choice or voice they have in local politics.
As the acclaimed voice of Enniskillen, Mayor Marriott is staying focused on the next 4 years, tending to both his constituents and his crops.
Earlier this week, Steve Paikin moderated a debate at the Toronto Region Board of Trade among 5 candidates running for mayor of the provincial capital. Here are just some of the highlights from that event.
Without further ado, let's introduce the candidates, and please everybody hold your applause till the end. Gil Penalosa is the founder and chair of 880 Cities. Stephen Punwasi is the co-founder and so-called chief data nerd of Better Dwelling. Sarah Kleiman-Haga is an entrepreneur, environmentalist, and change advocate. Chloe Brown, policy analyst at the Future Skills Center. And John Tory has the job the other 4 want. Please welcome everybody now to the stage. Public transit. What needs doing? Sarah Kleiman-Haga, a minute to you.
I believe we need to drop mandatory fares, first for seniors, then for the rest of the city. Every transit trip saves the city money. We shouldn't have any barriers in the way to ride transit. I believe we need to make accessibility a huge priority. It's not. We are still shutting too many people out of our transit system, which is bad for the city and bad for the people who are being shut out. We need to make low-cost rapid transit routes throughout the city on every major route. And I say low cost because I don't mean many years of delay or many hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean low cost solutions to giving transit priority. And finally, we need to sustainably fund transit. When I mention fare-free transit, people say, oh no, we can't afford that. But we have a serious funding problem at the TTC already. So we need to sustainably fund it, and we need to work with residents on all the different ways that we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Punwasi, a minute to you.
So to reach our climate goals, we need to get more people on public transit. And for that to happen, it needs to be fast, efficient, and cost effective. Currently, it's none of those things. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that it's poorly financed. We can't ask taxpayers to start paying more right now. We're going into a recession. So that's why we need to diversify revenues. That's why I'm proposing that we take the surplus TTC land and then turn it into city-owned shopping malls, offices, and even housing, and produce a recurring dividend that we can use to finance our transit's both operation and expansion. Tokyo does this, and they generate about 30% of the operating revenue for their system.
Mr. Penalosa.
Eglinton West, it was designed and contracted, was going to be above ground. One day, Doug Force wakes up and says, what if we put it underground? It's going to cost only $2.4 billion. And Mr. Tory said nothing. He didn't even accept to send communications to Premier Ford. If I had been mayor, I would have gone to Eglinton with a gigantic train mug with all of the 2.4, all of the zeros, so that people know how much 2.4 billion. And said, Premier Ford, thank you for putting 2.4 billion into public transit, but don't bury it. Same train, same speed, fewer stations.
Okay,
Let's put more transit in Etobicoke, in York, and in Scarborough. Let's not bury $2.4 billion.
I'm going to give Mr. Tory a chance to respond, and then Ms. Brown gets the last word.
I'll just say that the plan is a partnership, and we all came to an agreement. Everybody had to put a bit of wine in their water, and everybody had things that they wanted to see done. But the bottom line is we agreed on a plan among 3 governments, never been done before, and on how to pay for it. And I would just say this, you're hearing sounds of people who want to change that plan. And I'm saying to you, we have to proceed with the plan that we've agreed to, because otherwise we fall into the trap that we've been in before. And I think it is just crucial that we move forward. I have the experience of working with the other governments, being a part of that partnership, and I want to finish the job for once in this city to actually get a plan built that we've agreed to build.
Ms. Thanks, Ant. Thank you. Ms. Brown, to you.
So John Tory's Smart Track is a mix of the Big Move, which was published by Metrolinx about 15 years ago now, and a mix of Transit City, which was David Miller's. For him to say that he's the only person to get transit moving would be a lie. There have been successive mayors that have come through and have pitched government different ideas. The only reason why it's working now is because Doug wants subways. So it's just him living out Doug Ford's dream right now, and Doug luckily is in the position to get that to happen. Smart Track hasn't worked, and that was his idea. So I really am just blown away that this is the position he's taking when he introduced Smart Track, 8 years ago, and it still hasn't happened?
Okay, we now move on to our second question, which is about housing. I'm told 70% of Toronto neighborhoods apparently have antiquated zoning bylaws that prohibit modest increases in density. And I wonder whether any of the five of you plan to do anything about that.
We need more affordable housing, and we need it fast, but we can't get it from, the industry's already demonstrated that they will not build it. As soon as prices started to drop, they canceled 4,000 units, and we can blame that on cost overruns and inflation, but the reality is, in 2018, they also did this, and this isn't really an issue of we've run out of zoning. They're literally just canceling the apartments, and they're doing this to maintain a price floor. They need that 13% margin, which is good business, but it's bad city building. So that's why I'm proposing that we, instead of selling off our city land for cheap to developers, we actually develop it into a revenue-neutral, city-owned, purpose-built rentals.
Chloe Brown, you're up next.
So just to start, I don't blame the development industry for not building housing. One of the biggest problems is that residents groups can go to the Ontario Land Tribunal and for $400 stop into development. So it's honestly it's a two-prong approach where it's just we need to direct the city solicitor to limit appeals that are filed that are not based on sound engineering or architectural arguments. We need to, on top of changing rezoning, I'm trying to implement a land value tax, which is something that Metrolinx looked into during the Big Move as a land capture mechanism. So that means instead of taxing the properties that are on the land, we tax the land itself. That'll allow us to create a stabilized tax rate, and also it will allow us to use data to drive the way that we create revenue. Additionally, when we talk about tenants, yes, legalizing rooming houses is important, but as it stands, the rent-safe system doesn't even cover public and private tenants, so we need to change that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Penalosa.
If you have one age in place and you have a big house and you cannot afford it, you can split it in four as of right. We're going to have a one-stop shop at City Hall where we will answer all your questions, financial, legal, design, and we're going to have thousands and thousands of units. Imagine people all over the city. 80% of our city is only for single-family zoning. Now we're going to allow citywide to be able to subdivide. We're going to end with exclusionary zoning. The owners are going to benefit because now they're going to have income for life renting out those 3 additional units. Who's going to do the renovation? Medium-sized contractors. So the medium-sized contractors generating lots of employment. And the biggest benefit is going to be for renters that are going to have possibilities to live anywhere in the city. And as for the arterials, I'm going to allow also as of right to densify based on the width of the road. So developers are going to save 3 to 4 years. They're not going to waste time in lawyers and negotiating and all kinds of things. They're going to skip 4 years. There's going to be a lot more housing, and this is going to be housing where people are going to be able to live. And I think a lot of these issues are appealing to everybody. We have not had clear rules. Okay, and finally, in the plan that is public, it has to be 100% affordable. 2/3 affordable, 1/3 deep affordable. Not market rate on the land that all of us own.
Okay, Mr. Penalosa made some standby one because Mr. Penalosa made a comment saying that John Tory's record was an affordable housing failure, and I should give him a chance to respond to that.
Well, to put some facts on the table, Steve, the fact is, as of today, there are 19,000 affordable housing units in development. There have been built in the last 2 years, and this is crucial to our efforts to help people who are experiencing homelessness, 3,800 supportive housing units. People are living in most of that 3,800 today, living in it today. This has been an extraordinary effort. We have, over the last couple of years, approved garden suites, laneway suites, which have been referenced. We have already in place a vacant home tax to free up some of those units for the rental market. But the key going forward is, and this is what I'm seeking a mandate on, the two most important elements of the 5-point plan are to put in place a zoning regime that would have people able to build mid-rise development on busy corridors, as has been discussed by others, and secondly, and very importantly, to expand the range of housing options available in neighborhoods across the city to include triplexes, duplexes. You know, there are neighborhoods today, Beaches, Forest Hill, Rosedale, Leaside, North Toronto, where you can find all over the place duplexes and triplexes that have been there for decades. And all of a sudden, somehow it became a bad thing. They fit in well, and they can be done sensitively going forward, but we need that housing.
We haven't heard from Sarah Kleiman-Hage yet.
I think we need to take a totally different approach. Rather than saying, oh, the residents should lose, or oh, the developers should lose. It should be win-win for both. Residents have told me consistently they're not opposed to housing. They're opposed to the problems that come with poorly done housing. They're opposed to too much traffic, not enough green space. So we can have developers and residents in the room from the beginning in the city so that these problems get ironed out before the building starts and then with smooth sailing after that. So I think there's a lot of room for participation. I just wanted to say about this issue of a mandate. We want a mandate to go forward for 4 years. No, I think that democracy is more than one vote and then we do what we want for 4 years. Democracy is residents have to be involved all the time. If they want their neighborhoods to look a certain way, let's work with them on that. So there's so many opportunities for housing, both right away, as Gil mentioned, having homeowners be able to create more units, and also in the long term by having a better relationship between city developers and residents. And if we do it transparently and with good involvement, we can really have some great projects.
We now go on with question 3, and that is about business. What can the city do to make this a better place to establish and run a business? We'll have 5 opening statements, a minute each, and Sarah Kleiman-Hage, you go first.
First of all, we need to think of business as essential. During the last couple of years, we closed independent businesses that were really struggling. We treated them, you're not essential, but the pot shop's essential. The LCB is essential, but you, mom and dad, store owner, you're not essential. So I think we need to change that. All business is essential. It's part of the fabric of our community. It's the people that make our food, that bring us clothes, whatever it is, art, music. So we need to make business essential, first of all. Second of all, we need to be have Toronto be a place where employees can live. So we have to address this housing issue, because if employees aren't living here, if they're living an hour away, it's going to be a lot more difficult to attract good labor. And then we also need to make it easy for people to get around. So again, I talked about what we can do for transit. Walkability is key. We want Toronto to be easy. It should be easy to get to your workplace. So we need to pay attention to transportation as one of the key success factors for business.
Stephen Ponwasi.
So I'm an entrepreneur, so every single part of my platform was about creating new business opportunities and new sort of sources of revenue. We have 2 ideas that we're pumped about, and that's a municipal payment processor and a community venture fund. So a municipal payment processor would leverage the collective size of small and medium-sized businesses and negotiate credit card processing fees down, so they would regain that 1 to 2 points of non-productive costs that large businesses don't have to pay, which they can then reinvest back into their businesses. And the Community Venture Fund is essentially just a venture accelerator to invest in our innovators. Right now, we are known as being the largest real estate bubble in the world. We should be known for fostering business and innovation.
One of the biggest things that I think we can do to help business is modernize our government. As a policy analyst, it's always jarring to me that the government is constantly outsourcing its private technologies to third-source parties when it has the know-how already in-house to do this. As a millennial, I constantly find myself bashing my head against the wall of bureaucracy that is any sector. Whether it's manufacturing, skilled trades, healthcare, there's this wall of corporate bureaucracy that is slowing us all down from actually getting good work done. And that requires us investing in technologies to help us remove some jobs and roles that are no longer helping the process. As someone who is a big advocate for technology, I see that there's a lot of opportunity to make the City of Toronto user-friendly by hiring user experience researchers and designers to change the way that our physical, digital, and social infrastructure match up and give us the same outcomes. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Penalosa.
The city is falling apart. When people are walking down the street and the garbage cans are overfull, the doors are broken, they go to the parks and the washrooms are closed 8 months of the year, they're going to take public transit and the escalators are broken, people decide to move, especially for affordability. I'm not making this up. People said, oh, no one is going to leave the Silicon Valley in California because they got all the universities. Well, actually, people are moving. There are a lot of the best companies like Hewlett-Packard, like Oracle, they're moving away from the Bay Area and moving to other cities like Texas, states like Texas and Florida. Toronto, we are competing with Quebec, with Alberta, with Florida, with everyone. By the way, Alberta is really shameful. Those of us who use public transit, we have seen everywhere. Alberta is saying, if you want quality of life, come to Alberta. If you want affordable housing, come to Alberta. I mean, Mr. Tory, I know you don't use too much public transit, but you would be really infuriated by seeing every single step with a sign of Alberta attracting people for quality of life.
Thank you, Mr. Penalosa. John Tory, you are next.
You know, at the end of the day, the ability for people to find affordable housing and to look after their families is going to be best enhanced by them having a good, secure job. And I take my record with respect to creating the tax class, with respect to a host of other things, some of which I mentioned, Digital Main Street, Cafe TO, and I take as well my role as the chief salesperson for the city. People forget that before the pandemic, which did interrupt a lot of this work, I was the chief salesperson, and the film industry will tell you, the tech industry will tell you, I didn't do it by myself, but I led the team. I went where I had to go, I received people I had to receive, I made sure that new people who came here to invest were welcomed here in the way that you would expect, and I made sure that people who were already here got the support they needed to flourish. And so I will just say that I am seeking the privilege of serving in this job so I can continue to do that and make sure that people continue to invest here and create jobs here, which was happening at a North American leading pace before the pandemic. And the pandemic did interrupt things. And am I satisfied with some of the things that relate to what you see with your eyes as you go around the city? No, I'm not. Am I aware of the fact that hundreds of our workers were still deployed at the beginning of this year, helping in long-term care homes and in shelters and not able to do the kinds of jobs that will lead things to be better in future years? I'm aware of that. It will be better. It has to be better. It can be better, and I'll make sure that it is.
Can we now move on to the next segment, which is question 4, and it is in fact about red tape and whether there is too much in this city on business for them to operate properly. And we're going to do 5 one-minute statements, starting with Stephen Penwasi.
Yeah, so red tape's code for regulations, and some exist for good reasons and some don't. Eliminating them doesn't guarantee that the city will be able to execute anything any faster, because we do have low red tape situations where the city hasn't been able to execute. In the automotive industry, they have red tape, and rather than, they can build a car really fast if you eliminated all of the regulations, but it's not something that benefits all of society. So what did they do? They learned to automate, innovate, and streamline their processes, and that's what our open source city plan does. We're going to build city software in collaboration with the other municipalities, some that have already agreed to work with me on this. And we will collect and streamline approval processes, create new systems for data so that we can actually accelerate and pinpoint the bottlenecks that hold up all of these business applications and permits, as well as other municipal bottlenecks.
Chloe Brown, you're up next.
There's so much opportunity that is currently lacking in our government because it doesn't ask the users what it needs. Right now, the systems are designed for reporting. So like as an analyst, like I get all my numbers for reporting, but people who use the system, it's not friendly for them. And this is where the development industry, like they get a lot of gruff, but the permit system's not built for them. It's built for bureaucrats to report numbers. And I would like to work with workers to redevelop these systems directly. And I think there's a huge opportunity there to save money on overhead by moving to technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Penalosa.
I have run successfully organizations in the public, in the private, in the not-for-profit, and in all of them, if you have not ended red tape within the first 2 years, you are out. Mr. Tory has not ended red tape in over 8 years, and he wants more time for it. With our homes for everyone, we're going to end red tape. In the renovation, people are going to be able to renovate as of right and one-stop shop to get all the answers. On all of the arterials, people are going to be able, developers are going to do homes as of right. So that means that they're going to jump 3 to 4 years. It's going to be cheaper, it's going to be faster. That is ending red tape. So let's not see what Mr. Tory is going to do in the next 4. Let's see what he has not done in the last 8.
Just quick question for the audience, since I believe in participatory democracy. Could someone put up their hand, or anyone, how many bylaws do you think the City of Toronto has? Just guess. Don't put your hand up if you don't know. Anyone? Hand up. Guess. Anyone? Come on, one of you guys. Guess how many bylaws? 500? Another guess. I'm running out of time. Quick, guess something else. No one wants to guess. 1,000. 200,000 bylaws in the City of Toronto, around 40,000 employees. So each employee could spend their entire job enforcing 5 bylaws, and maybe we'd enforce them. So that's ridiculous, and that's why we have such a lack of clarity, such a lack of enforcement. So, I mean, let's start with that. Let's start with eliminating everything that's not necessary, that's not enforced, that's not important, and prioritize what is important. And then, let's just take an attitude towards permits. Is something going to be good for the city? If it is, get rid of the permit process. And let's have faster response times. Answer our phones within 24 to 72 hours. All of these things can make our city work so much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Tory, you are next.
So I think the challenge for us is to find ways for people to deal with the government more easily. I'm going to appoint, as part of this platform, a red tape champion on the council whose job it's going to be to identify places where we may not have to have permits anymore. But I think the real nub of what we have to do is to make it easier for people to deal with government and get out of the way so that they can do the most important thing in terms of the overall well-being of the community, which is to create jobs and economic activity.
Thank you. I know this audience wants to join me in thanking the candidates for coming today and participating in this debate.
That's just some of what was said during the debate held by the Toronto Board of Trade this past week. For the full 70 minutes, please visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda or our Twitter feed, twitter.com/theagenda. And that's it for this Friday, October 21st, 2022. With Alberta's new premier now raising the stakes on sovereignty, Monday will take the temperature of federalism in Canada. I'm Nam Kiwanuka. Thanks for watching TVO and for joining us online at tvo.org. Have a great weekend, and Steve, we'll see you on Monday.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism. Ontario Hubs are made possible by the Barry and Laurie Green Family Charitable Trust and Goldie Feldman.